Welcome, welcome. We are talking about 1.8 inverse functions today. This is actually the last section of the unit. So recall, we've been in Unit 1 since August, but you have already assessed over 1.1 through 1.6. Last week you had 1.7, now you have 1.8. And then you will have a short quiz. It's just going to be during your asynchronous time. You will be given a time limit once you start. But before you start that, make sure to do these first. All right. So we're going to talk about property of inverse functions and what they are. An inverse function happens when you have a reflection over y equals x, okay? Given a function, the notation for the inverse function is f to the negative 1 of x. This means inverse. Anytime you see f to the negative 1, that means inverse, okay? Because they're a reflection over the line y equals x, that means that the x and y values change. Like whatever was the x value now becomes the y value. Whatever was the y value now becomes the x value. So an example, so that means that the domain is equal to the range of its inverse. And then the opposite would be true. The range is equal to the domain of its inverse. So if I was given the point xy, it would be the point y comma x for the inverse. Okay, there will be an algebraic way to solve that. This is why composition of functions, why we talked about it. So basically, if you do the inverse composed with the original function, you should get the answer x. You'll recall that f of g of x was not the same thing as g of f of x, but for inverses, they actually are equal to one another, which means that they will both equal x. So notice the difference there is just instead of, let's use f and g. Instead of f composed with g, the other one is g composed with f, except they're in the terms of f inverse and f of x. Okay? If the relation and its inverse are both functions, so think about what function means. Go back to 1.1. If they are both, then we say that the function is 1 to 1. Okay, and the last little piece for your vocab recap, if each value of the dependent variable corresponds to exactly one value of the independent variable, that means that it would pass the horizontal line test instead of the vertical line test. Although it should pass it too, so it's going to pass the vertical and horizontal line test. If this happens, then the function is said to be a 1 to 1 function. All right, so now you have a match vocabulary slide.